Hi everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Barclay with me, Jez Davies. This week I'm joined by Rob Butler. Hi Rob.
Hello, I was enjoying your theme tune there. It was great. It's like a sort of 80s quiz show or something. I was popping along. Quite sad to see the back of it.
Well, we'll play it again at the end, so you'll get to it again.
Nice one.
But yeah, it is a good little theme tune. It's one of Podbean's obviously who host this podcast. It's one of their sort of tunes that they allow me to use, and it doesn't get deleted, thankfully, when we upload it to all of the various things. But thank you so much for coming on, Rob.
Absolute pleasure, mate. No problem. Always happy to speak to Norwich fans.
Absolutely, and this is what this podcast is all about. It's about finding a little bit more about the fan, what they what makes them tick really, and what they do on match days, etc. So no, I do really appreciate it. If you can just for those people that don't know who you are, if you can just explain a little bit about yourself, what you do for a living, and how long you've been a Norwich fan for, really.
I've been a Norwich fan all my life, and I work for BBC, and I present Canary Call. Is probably the most well-known thing I do, which is the post-match phone-in after every Norwich game. I've been working up in Manchester for a few months, working for 5 Live, but I'm back now for the time being, and covering Norwich.
Yeah, just before we came on, we were discussing your most recent interview with Marcondes, the new lad from Denmark. So that was a really good interview. Nice to hear about his free kick school that he attended in Africa.
Amazing, yeah. He's got his own free kick school, and being as you've asked, I'll plug it. It's available on BBC Sounds. You can still listen. Jez got the big thumbs up for it, so have a listen if you haven't listened to it on the scrimmage yet.
Absolutely, yeah. No, we'll and I'll obviously plug that as well on all the Beyond the Barclay channels on socials. So sort of kicking off then, so how do you balance being a passionate Norwich City fan with your responsibilities with Radio Norfolk during match days?
Yes, it's hard to balance because, I think it's obvious that my job is a journalist, so you have to be balanced, and I work for the BBC, but clearly me and Chris Gorham are Norwich fans, so, we don't try and hide that, and I don't think the BBC really minds at a local level. Having worked recently at 5 Live over the Euros and the Olympics, obviously, it's quite interesting because there is no partisan stuff there on a national level, apart from when Gary Lineker wore his pants when Leicester won the league, but that was for sort of banter. But yeah, you have to be much more careful. But at a local level, they're happy for us to be fans because that kind of what makes local radio stand out and local stuff stand out. But obviously, I still have to be balanced. I still have to have both sides of the argument. So sometimes I will say things that necessarily I don't necessarily, it's not necessarily my opinion, but it is the way to balance the argument and say, well, hang on, have you thought about it this way? So it's interesting, but genuinely, I think it's obvious that I wear my heart on my sleeve, say what I think. And, that's probably why people want to tune in, whether they like it or don't. At least, they'll get honesty out of me.
Oh, no, I completely agree with you. And I think, it's so important that, someone like yourself that's so passionate about the club does, present something like Canary Call, where you get so many passionate views, and we'll come on to it a little bit later. But you got your one sort of club community there, haven't you, with Norwich? And it's there's no other. Well, there is other clubs within the area, but no professional club. And it's interesting. I listened to another podcast which is heavily surrounding Exeter City, and the guy down there, Tim Vickery, possibly, I think his name is. He's a big Exeter.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think I've heard of Tim. Yeah,
he's a massive Exeter fan, but he has to commentate on Plymouth, and that's their biggest rivals.
Oh, right, yeah.
It's one of those where he has to sort of, as you say, I think he has to be a little bit more impartial about Plymouth. And it's, I suppose, the likely, the similarity there would be if you had to go to Ipswich, I suppose. But
well, I have been covered Ipswich quite a lot in my younger days when I was working for Anglia Television or ITV Anglia. Yeah. I was a producer when I started in the business in TV, and I used to go there quite a lot with Darren Eadie of all people. We used to do reports from there, and I sort of used to shoot it and produce it. So that was interesting, but of course I wasn't on the radio then, so no one knew who I was. They just used to, well, actually they were very nice to Darren Eadie, to be fair, because Ipswich, believe it or not, is quite a welcoming club, away from the fans, as it were, in terms of the Norwich-Ipswich rivalry, but behind the scenes are really welcoming. And they actually showed a lot of respect towards Darren because they knew he was such a great player. So we were always quite surprised at how well received he was, because I think they just thought, well, whatever you say about Darren Eadie, he is one of the best players to come from Norwich or Ipswich over the years. So you have to just respect that, don't you? Same way as I've met Ipswich players. I worked a lot with Matt Holland on a TV show on BBC, and he is great guy, brilliant at his job, and he was a brilliant player. So I got on really well with him. So it's not all hatred between Norwich and Ipswich.
No, I agree, and I think something I mentioned on the first ever episode of this pod, it was, I think sometimes is that sort of banter rivalry. I think some people do take it to heart sometimes, but 9 times out of 10, I think I went to university with an Ipswich fan, and lovely bloke, and we got on swimmingly. Seeing him in a few weeks for a stag do, actually. So I'm not, obviously he'll be crowing about their Premier League successes, being in there at the Premier League at the moment. So
they got any wins yet, though, have they?
No, not yet. And I don't think it'll be too far. I mean, they've had a few draws, haven't they? But it's get that monkey off their back, isn't it, of getting that first victory? So just touching on Canary Call, then, is there any what's it like managing the raw emotions of the supporters after matches? Is there any memorable calls that stand out to you?
Oh yeah, we've had people crying, from sadness about our team, the bad. We've had people crying with joy.
Yeah.
We've had people singing. We have drunk people phoning up. We've had a few swearers. I remember a very notable one that I won't go through because I want to keep it clean. But there was definitely a memorable one that I think at the time I was quite sad about it, because you don't want people swearing on your podcast or phoning or TV show, radio show, whatever it is. But actually, the way I handled it was used by a sort of BBC training thing for a little while, because the way that we try and deal with callers who swear is to kind of almost belittle them a little bit, not in a derogatory way, but just kind of say, look, you have the right to come on the BBC and swear at guests or swear at anyone or swear at the listeners. So. I got a feather in my cap for how I handled it, actually. So there you go. There's always something comes, but you don't. I mean, it's an interesting bunch of people. I love doing the phone in. I really do. While I was away, the likes of Chris Reeve, Jack Reeve, and Michael Bailey did a fantastic job covering me. I love doing it, and we get a great bunch of Norfolk characters on. That's what it's all about.
I always remember when I used to listen. I'm out the county now. I mean, I do still go to the games semi-frequently these days, and it's one of my things that I tune into on the car on the way home. And you get it up to probably about Thetford, and then it gets a bit sort of white noisy after that. But it's I always, there is a Scottish gentleman that always rings in, and I think he's quite balanced. Is it? It might be Ian.
Ian. Ian's great. I think a lot of people, let's be honest, talk about him and say I disagree or I agree, but I think Ian's really articulate. And
I agree.
The one thing I'll do is, and when I was a listener, when Neil used to present it, I'd often say, oh, they haven't even been to a game, why are they ringing in? But actually, I completely flipped on that, because we are there for the people who aren't at the games.
Exactly.
There's so many people in the world and Norfolk who can't get to games for a variety of reasons. They can't afford it. They can't travel there. They're unable to get there because of health reasons. So we are there for them. Chris Gorham's voice is there for them to tell them what's happening in the game. So I, love people phoning who haven't been to the game. And even if they haven't seen the game, me and, Mark Rivers or whoever sat with me can tell them what's happened. We can go through it because we've seen it with our own eyes. So I would never, ever criticise anyone for coming who's not been at the game. They have got just as much right to say their thoughts on it as the person who has been at the game, I think.
No, I completely agree. And I think, as you say, you're offering a valuable service there. And, there are people that, go to the game, probably don't listen to it, and then, use Canary Call as a gauging of opinion of the fans, I suppose. And, nowadays as well, there's so many different places you can get that. But I still think it's really important that you've got that service there that you offer the fans. But equally, as you say, during the game, when you've got people that, for whatever reason, as you say, can't go, it's nice. It's good. It's a really good thing. And it must be so rewarding that that you offer that. And as you say, Chris does as well. And all of the
absolutely. Yeah, and that's why we, without getting on the soapbox, that's why the BBC is so important, and that's why the EDP and the Pinkham Boys are so important, and Jack and Chris on TNC and all the other great podcasts, including yours, because we've got to fight for it, because there's, let's be honest, Norwich aren't the biggest story in the football world. when I was up in at Five Live, you kind of getting programs together where you talk about Man City, Chelsea, Man United every week. And Norwich get a look in on the things like 72 plus and the EFL programs, but they're not getting the platform that perhaps they deserve.
No.
So there has to be local radio, there has to be local media to cover Norwich City in the way that they should be covered. Yeah. And I know everyone always says this, but I think Norwich fans are actually very lucky with the amount of brilliant people out there, including like podcasts and fan-based podcasts and etc. I think it's fair to say Chris and Jack lead the way on that.
Yeah.
They've done an amazing job. And, Connor and Paddy and the lads there, Sam Seaman, do a brilliant job with the Pink. And so, and we're all in it together. We all work together. We're all friends. We all, obviously we're kind of rivals in a way, but we're not. We're all Norwich fans and we're all pushing for the same thing, which is for Norwich fans to have great coverage. So that's why it's important that things like that continue, I think.
Agreed. And I think it's that you're right. It's a common goal, isn't it? You're there to, as well as obviously you're reporting on the goings on at Carrow Road and the training ground, but it's there for all the fans. And I think as well, as you say, Jack and Chris, I think the biggest thing that they do is, well, twofold actually, was during COVID. I think that what they did with their watch-alongs, I thought that was excellent.
I didn't get to watch them because I was at the games, but yeah, we did go on one, me and Chris, a couple of times. They got us on via Zoom or whatever, and it was great. And that's why I've got Chris Reeve involved in the scrimmage, and Jack as well has been done loads of stuff with us over the years. I think they're both brilliant, and I think they're both doing a brilliant job, and they're kind of fulfilling an area perhaps that we can't necessarily do as the BBC, and that the Pink can't do. No. So there's room for everyone, and we're all great, and it's just a nice mix of kind of different options that people have got.
No, I agree. It's really good to hear. So touching on obviously the team itself, how do you think that we're performing this season?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I've not been at every game, so I've been up in Manchester and Salford, but I have obviously done the last few games, Leeds and Hull. Was it? I've only done two. Yeah, Leeds and Hull. I went to the Sheffield United game as a fan. I went to the Blackburn game as a fan with a few mates, which was nice. Yeah. And that was kind of at the start of it all, and I could see green shoots. I could see what Johannes was trying to do, and it was quite interesting. It was a little bit frustrating because we weren't defending well. But obviously, I've watched the games on TV and listened to Radio Norfolk's coverage, and it's got better and better. I think the Coventry one was one where we really kicked on, and we were like, "Here we go, this is a team here." And Leeds was good. I wish we'd have won, obviously, and we could have won. But I thought Hull was exceptional, and it just makes me excited as a Norwich fan, having now interviewed Johannes Hop-Torp and spoken to him and been in a room with him a few times. I think he's great. I think he's got something about him a bit special. He reminds me a bit of, I don't know, I'm not going to say Farke because I don't think he's necessarily like Farke. He's got a bit of Lambert about him in that he doesn't suffer fools gladly, which I like. Yeah. He's got a sort of element of all the great managers we've had in the last few years, really. He's got that element of you can trust him, which I think David Wagner had, and I know people will go, oh, hang on a minute, Rob, David Wagner, we didn't like him, but we did because he got us to the playoffs and he did a lot of good for the club. Yeah. He's got that likability that I think Dean Smith had. Again, not a great manager for Norwich, but a very likeable chap. Yeah. He's got a bit of everything, but he's his own man, so that's not me saying he's copying anyone else. I think he's the man that I'm really excited about. There's lots of players that I'm excited about, but I think the bottom line is Johannes Hop-Torp is the real deal. And Johannes Hop-Torp is going to take this club up. I really do believe that.
I completely agree. The two games that I've seen this season, both sort of contrasting fortunes, but actually I took away probably the same thing from both games was the Palace game where we lost 4-0, but actually you could see even that the scoreline flattered Palace. I mean, they put their first team out because they'd had a couple of stinkers early doors in the Premier League. So they thought, right, well, let's use this as the opportunity to, get a win under our belts. Norwich put I wouldn't say a weakened side out, but certainly, it wasn't what you'd be classed as a first team, but, the scoreline reflected that, but you could still see the patterns of play. You could see, the biggest thing for me is what the fullbacks do. So they push into the middle and create that overload. But then equally they're bombing up and down the way. I mean, the player for me, Fisher, has just been exceptional this season so far. But that's,
he has.
It's just, yeah, you can see what he's trying to do there. You can see that there's a clear plan. For me, the only thing I would be concerned about is if we have a couple of injuries, but actually George Long come in on against the Hull and did well, made a couple of decent saves. So actually, has he got the players on the fringe players motivated enough to come out and actually, carry on the projects? And I think Glenn Riddlesham, a lot of stuff that I've seen this week and last week on LinkedIn and some of his sort of social media updates where he's getting involved with the whole club. He's going to some of the youth games, he's going to the ladies games, and he's embedding himself in that community. And I think he's really important to throw up as well, because he's got that almost mentor character there as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the understanding is that Jack Wilshere's going to be coming in and expect that to be announced next week. And, that's a brilliant get, one of the great Premier League players, fantastic player he was, massive name in football, played for England. Obviously, he's a great coach. He's done great stuff with the under-18s. Arsenal fans that I've seen are gutted that they're going to lose him. Yeah. I think the Arsenal hierarchy, from what I've told, are sad to lose him, but also proud that he's going to go off and do his own thing. And you feel as if, we're not going to get ahead of ourselves, but you feel as if that's a bit of a succession plan, that if Johannes Torp, is a success, and we hope he is, and we think he's going to be, that he gets us to the Premier League, we stay up, then, Real Madrid come in for him. I'm not even joking. And, he goes to a European club, and then you've got Jack Wilshere to take over. So that would be the dream, wouldn't it? And, to get us going. But I think Ben Napper's doing an exceptional job. I think I've said it on the radio many times. You have to give Stuart Webber credit for what he did. He did some incredible stuff, but there was some lacking there, I think, with the way sometimes he dealt with fans in the media. I don't think the fans appreciated some of the stuff he said. Certainly don't appreciate some of the stuff he said recently in interviews as well. Yeah. And that's not in line with Norwich City's views. Can't take away the success he had. Can't take away what he's done at the training ground, some of the amazing players he brought in, and Daniel Farker, etc. But I just feel the club's a bit warmer now. I really do. And I feel like they've got a lot more clued up to how fans should be treated. I think that's got Atanasio's influence as well. And clearly the Americans are trying to make sure that the fans are put first. Because bottom line is, I'm not just saying this for the cheap pop, as we say in wrestling, but the bottom line is the fans are the most important people. And when a club loses sight of that, you might as well give up. I mean, that is the most important thing. And I think Norwich are there at the minute. I think they are putting the fans first, along with obviously the playing staff as well.
Something that got brought up in an earlier episode, and it was with Nick actually, who he mentioned that Nick. He mentioned that he feels a lot more, even though he lives in San Francisco, USA, he feels a lot more connected to the club this season than he ever has, and to the point where his children were getting birthday cards on their birthday and like little mementos and stuff. And I think that's, as you say, I think it's really key. And he was over for a game, and the game was sold out, as it usually is at Carrow Road at that time. And he contacted the club, and they really looked after him. And as you say, I think the club make a massive effort to make sure that all of the fans are looked after. It's almost a personable touch, I'd say. I think that about Norwich.
Yeah, they've always been like that, to be fair, and there's no doubt about it. That's why we love our club, I think. Yeah. But I just found it interesting that, and I'm not one to sit here and criticise people for what's gone before, but I did say it at the time when they were there. So it's not as if I've said it sort of when they've gone. I just felt like if your sporting director's coming out and kind of saying, what do fans expect, and it was too quiet in Carrow Road, and that's not going to help things, because you've just got to be so careful what you say about fans, because we're quite this is me speaking as a football fan, we're quite needy. We can be divas. We like to be loved. We like to be sort of told how great we are as football fans, and I don't think sometimes I think there's a little bit of kind of, you just have to be careful how you say things, and I think it was coming from a frustrating place for certain people, and I understand where they were coming from. With certain sponsorship deals that went wrong and what have you, but you just have to be so careful. And I think the way the club is now, and Delia and Michael, God bless them, have done an amazing job over the years, and they've certainly been years ago in place when things were really great with the fans. So it's not down to them. I just think the American influence, the Norfolk Holdings lot have come in and they've obviously realised that the fans at Norwich City Football Club are so important, and you just got to be nice to them. You just got to, because we're loyal, and I've spoken to a lot of fans who are going up. We're recording this before the Stoke game. Who were going up there, and there's probably going to be 3,000 there tomorrow, and it's a long way, and it's cold, and it's near Christmas and whatever, and they're all going. They'll be Preston on Tuesday as well. So it's a great club, and the support is phenomenal.
That's the old analogy, isn't it? Cold night at Stoke. So
cold afternoon at Stoke. Yeah, so exactly.
Can they do it on the cold night at Stoke? Yeah, I've written your opening line tomorrow for you. How about that? So just a couple more questions. But I just want to speak about the wrestling before we finish. But just a couple more about Norwich. In your opinion, who's been the unsung hero for Norwich this season?
That's a good question. The unsung hero, I think probably Ben Napper in a way, because I think everyone's getting excited about Johannes Hoftorp, and obviously the players, Callum Doyle and Cordoba and all these great players. Borja Sainz has been absolutely brilliant, player of the month, etc. But Ben Napper, I think, is getting credit, but I think you really have to give him massive credit for going out there and getting Johannes, who, let's be honest, we've never heard of, and we hadn't. And he's gone out there and, it's not been confirmed yet as we record this, but Jack Wilshere's coming, which seems to be going to be announced next week, which is incredible. What a coach that's going to be. The players that he's brought in, we've just mentioned them, Cordoba, Callum Doyle, these fantastic players. Kellen Fisher's now playing out of his skin. He's now, you can't drop him, and you've dropped, you've had to make a place for him in the team because he's just been so brilliant. He's kept Josh Sargent, which was massive as well. From what I understand, there was a big offer for him that they were able to turn down, which is good news. So, I think the unsung hero is Ben Napper. I think he's doing a brilliant job, and, he's just quietly going about his business. He's not doing loads of interviews. I don't think that's his style. I don't think fans are bothered if Norwich are winning games. They don't want to hear from him. They just want him to carry on doing a great job.
I think we're so used to, I agree. And I think we were so used to Webber coming out and almost giving interviews at will. And I don't, you'll probably be the best place to confirm that, but that's how it seemed with Webber, that he'd be very happy to speak and very happy to give his point of view. Whereas Ben, as you say, Ben Napper, very quiet, works behind the scenes, just getting on with it. And he came in, what was it, November time of last year, and just literally, you never didn't hear from him. And the fans were going, well, why are we not hearing from him? And actually, I was thinking at the time, no, just let him get on with it. Let him do what he's doing.
Yeah. I think I can see why fans wanted to hear from him at the start, and I do understand that.
Yeah.
But with hindsight, I think it was probably the right thing to do because he just wanted to get on with it. And on your point with Stuart, don't get me wrong, Stuart Webber, I don't think he was desperate to speak to people. I don't think it was a case that he was desperate to come out and kind of, put his voice forward. And I think, to be fair to him, he did front up when he really needed to. He did come out and speak. And to be fair, with the sponsorship thing that we mentioned as well, which I think the club did the right thing in canning it. That's my opinion. He kind of said, I wish they hadn't, because it was a bit of money that he could have given to Daniel to spend. So I quite admire his honesty, and I don't think he pulled any punches in his interviews. And in many ways, that we needed that, right at the start. We needed someone to come in and go, right, come on, stop messing about. Let's get this club sorted. So it worked in a lot of the time. But I think at the end, he was kind of saying things and having little digs at fans and that, upsetting. But, that's history. Stuart Webber's gone now. He's gone. He's finished. He's finished with Norwich City and he'll get a new job, etc. So we don't need to talk about him. But the bottom line is that Ben Napper doesn't do as many interviews. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
And I think Norwich fans in the long run will appreciate the fact that that's because he's working hard and doing the job, and Norwich are winning football matches, and that's all that matters. And
I think you're right. In terms of his unsung hero, if it wasn't for him, we probably wouldn't have got. Well, we certainly wouldn't have got the manager. We wouldn't have got the players that he's got in. That he's clearly. There's a thought process behind the type of player that we're now getting in, like Jose Cordoba. I mean, he's an immense defender. Like, the way he excuse me, the way that he sets himself up, it's just been phenomenal to watch. And, certainly since he's come in the team, we've looked a lot more astute at the back, and it's been really good. So sort of moving on to, all these players he has brought in, but what do you think about in January? Who would you think that we would need to bring in to stay competitive?
I just want to keep who we've got. I mean, Borja Sainz was signed by the previous regime, and he's been a revelation. So all credit to them.
Yeah.
He's been a revelation this season, playing in a team that suits him clearly, scoring goals, just looking like, almost Emi Buendia levels, which is big talk because that's one of our best players ever. So I just want to keep who we've got. I think we probably do need that striker just to have something to back up to Josh, because we touch wood that he's not going to get injured. Marcondes is more a sort of false 9 or number 10, I think. So he's not going to be that out and out target man that Josh can be. So perhaps looking up front, but you're always looking for a striker, aren't you? Whatever football team you are, unless you're Man City, who've got the best in the world, and you're always looking. So that, and I just want to keep what we've got really, and keep the manager. I can't see him going in January, but you just feel as if we're on the cusp of something a bit special here. I really do. And I've watched football a long time like you have.
Yeah.
And I just feel that there's something special happening. And, certainly have to give credit to the previous regime for laying the foundations there. But Ben Napper's going to take it on, and it's exciting, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you got all the ingredients there, and as you say, I mean, it's the previous regime's done whatever they can, and then we've now got someone that's going to take it to the next stage. Worked at the big. Well, I think Arsenal in the next 5-10 years will be one of the biggest clubs, if not the biggest club, certainly in the UK and England. But I think they'll start winning European stuff as well by the progression of that football club. He was involved with that. He was loans manager, I believe.
Yes, he was.
And he's someone that's clearly liked because he's Jack Wilshere's. He's based down my way. He lives in Hertfordshire. But it's not that far to drive to Norfolk, of course, but he's invested rather than going 15-20 minutes down the road to London Colney, he's now driving up to Norwich. So clearly he thinks enough of Ben Napper to do that. So clearly Ben Napper's got that kind of ability to get people in that are going to be influential. But no, I think you're completely right. What we'll see with Norwich now is going to be tenfold of what we saw with the Daniel Farke season, because I think the two things for me was the two games against Watford and Hull. Hull hadn't lost for 3 games, and we dismantled them. Watford are now what I believe are 6th in the league, and we dismantled them as well. And it's kind of like, if we can keep that level of performance up, then the teams don't work us out. Which for me, I think if that does happen, we'll have a plan B. I think we'll fly this season. We're definitely automatic promotion for me.
Yeah, I hope so. And, you mentioned Jack Wilshere. The big thing for me about him is, Johannes Hoff-Torp or Daniel Farke are 2 great managers this football club have had, walk into a dressing room and, they have to earn respect because they weren't top players. Farke, to be fair, I think he was a decent lower league German player. So they have to earn respect by being great coaches. Paul Lambert walks in the dressing room. He's got a European Cup medal, so you go, right, this guy knows what he's doing. He's got something to show. Jack Wilshere walks in the dressing room. You go, wow, I'm a big Jack Wilshere fan as a player. I loved him as a footballer. I thought he was brilliant. My sort of player, that kind of midfield, creative, little buzzy player that would get around, could tackle, get tough, play for England, on many occasions. So he's got no worries there about walking in the dressing room and them lads not respecting him. They will immediately respect him. So that's exciting. So you've got that element of, first team coach, Jack Wilshere, one of the great Premier League players, Johannes Hoff-Torp, who's already proved at Nordsjælland that he can take an unfancied team to high levels and nearly win the Danish Superliga, and he's already proven that he knows what he's doing, so it's exciting. It's a great mix. And you've got Glenn, who you mentioned as well, who's clearly a great guy in his flat cap, walking around Norwich and having a great time. So this is a really exciting time for Norwich fans. And I'm honestly I don't want people to think we're over exaggerating but we've watched football for a long time and I've just got a good feeling about it. I've covered football for a long time and it just feels great.
It does, I was absolutely, as I said, Hull, unfortunately, was through circumstance, was my first game of the season, and I walked away from that ground buzzing. Drive home was brilliant. So thank you so much for coming on. Just before we finish, I just wanted to talk to you about your wrestling documentary, because I love that documentary series that you did, and which was on the iPlayer, I believe it. I don't know if it still is, but what actually inspired you to make that?
Yeah, I mean, It's still on the iPlayer, you're right? Yeah, it's called Step Into the Ring. We made it for BBC Three, so it was on BBC Three originally, and still on the iPlayer. It's Step Into the Ring. It's called. It follows Zach Knight, who's a well-known British wrestler who's now signed with AEW, and he has, he's quite well known in the Norfolk community for training lots of different people with different needs, either that be disability issues or learning difficulties or people who have background problems, and he trains them to be wrestlers along with his family, his dad Ricky, his mum Julia, better known as Soraya Knight, and his brother Roy, and his nephew Pat and Ricky Jr. I have to mention them all, or they get upset if I don't mention them all. The whole Knight family, Nikki Knight as well, Pat's mum. But yeah, they're an incredible family, and I've known them for a very long time. Originally, I still am friends with Roy, but I knew Roy through football because he's a prolific local footballer, and sort of a couple of mutual friends. We all knew each other, and I've always been a wrestling fan since I was a little kid because my granddad, was a boxing and a wrestling promoter, so I got the bug from him. And I've just known him for a long time and got to know him. I for radio trained to be a referee, so we did a radio bit where I trained to be a referee, and I got to know some of the wrestlers, and I was like, blimey, these guys are amazing, and I got to know so many of them, and I just had the idea to pitch it to someone within BBC Norwich. I said, look, there's a show here, I don't know whether it's a half-hour documentary or an hour-long documentary or a series, and her name is Diana Hare, and luckily she saw the potential for it, and she said, let's aim for the stars. We'll try and get a commission on BBC Three for a national. And wow, I was like, why not? So we went through a pilot process where we filmed with Zach and some of the characters, and which was with David Whiteley, who now works for ITV Anglia, so he deserves massive credit for filming it with me. He was shooting it and producing it with me, and it got commissioned. Went through a long process, took about a year, but it got commissioned. It was the first ever locally produced programme that BBC Three had taken on, so they were happy for us to make it, and they were going to take it and obviously provide the funding, what have you. So that was a real buzz for me. So we got a director on board whose name was Hannah Barty, who's an incredible award-winning director. He's won the Rose, it's the Palme d'Or for film, basically. I can't remember exactly what they call it, like the Ballon d'Or for football, but it's this amazing award you can get in Cannes. He's won loads of BAFTAs, and he's incredible. He is a brilliant man. So me and him worked together for 3 months. We filmed and followed Zach. We filmed and followed all these great kids, including Marvel Marcus, who's got autism, and there's Pocket, who's got PTSD and lots of other things going on in her life. An incredible young woman.
Is that Imogen?
No, that was Pocket. That's her nickname, Pocket. Imogen's just a kind of she hasn't got any disabilities, but she'd been through quite a lot in her life, and she was seen as the posh girl because all her friends went off to study law, and she said, no, I'm moving to Norwich to be a wrestler. So brilliant. She's incredible, and I'm still good friends with her. Yeah,
I actually sit two seats away from her mum at Carrow Road.
Yes, her incredible mum Emma. Yes, I love Emma. She's great. Yeah, and Emma, we filmed with Emma quite a lot. We'll say hello to her next year for me. And she's great. So we filmed with Emma, and and all the various other people at her house, whether she's originally from Leon C. Yeah. And then there's James Chilvers, who's the blind wrestler. Yeah. I've got to mention them all because I feel bad if I don't. No, and of course, Slick Sam, who is a close friend of mine. I'm friends with him and his family, and my profile picture on all my socials is me and Sam, my tag team partner. He is amazing, and he's got Down syndrome, and he's just the most amazing person I've ever met, and his family are the most amazing family. They really are. So that was where it came from, and we made the show, and hopefully it inspired a lot of people. It's still available. We won an award for it, an RTS award, which I'm really proud of. It sits on my mantelpiece at home. And it was the best thing I've ever done. All this football stuff I did, and then it was wrestling that gave me my biggest achievement in life, which is quite incredible. But I'm glad you enjoyed it, mate. Glad you enjoyed it.
Honestly, it was superb. And for me, it's I always find myself funny to say this really, but always finding connections to home, and that for me sort of it was a connection to Norfolk, and I was really proud watching all of these people, and particularly the lad that was dealing with all of these different levels of disabilities and things, and how he was making these kids smile and bringing some joy to their life. And that, I think, for me, that's what it's all about. And obviously, it spawned the Hollywood film where the lady, the girl always forget her name, but she obviously Paige, of course, yeah.
Soraya, Soraya's her real name, yeah. The film was actually before, the original film. So what it was, just to get it right, was because I feel bad, not getting the right order. There was a Channel 4 documentary about Zach and Soraya, and then that led to her, which chronicled her moving to WWE.
Right.
Zach missed out. Then the Hollywood film was made by Stephen Merchant, which is incredible. Fighting with Family, brilliant film. Absolutely love it. Starring Florence Pugh and Nick Frost is in it, and it's amazing. It's an incredible film. And then our documentary Step Into the Ring follows on from that and sees where Zach is now. And, Zach is doing an incredible job looking after local youngsters and training them to be wrestlers. And now he's signed finally for the big AEW, All Elite Wrestling in America, run by Tony Khan, who's a Fulham fan and runs Fulham as well. And he signed with them, which is where his sister now is as well. So, it's a sort of trilogy, really. And the guys who made the film and the original Channel 4 documentary, incredible things. You need to watch them as well. They're all brilliant. I
can't remember if I saw the Channel 4 one, so I'll definitely have a look out for that one.
I think it's on like YouTube and Daily Motion and places like that. Right. It's brilliant. And we were so inspired by that as a sort of inspiration for Step Into the Ring. It's just a genius piece of work. I think the director's name is Max. Apologies, I don't know his surname, but look him up because he is such a talented man.
So just finally then, will there be, I know a few years ago we had the event at Canary Road. Do you think we'll have any more of those events come up?
Well, we do. We have, WAW, which is Zach and Ricky Knight's promotion. They have big shows every week. They're based at Diamond Road in the city. So get along if you fancy taking the kids some wrestling. It's family friendly. It's brilliant. It's reasonably priced. There's a cheap bar and all that. And it's great for the Norfolk community. I shouldn't really sell tickets working for the BBC, but they do so much for the local people. And they have big events at Fightmare. And I actually had a Norfolk showground called Fightmare, and I actually had a match against Ricky, with Sam as my sort of tag team partner a couple of years ago, which raised over sort of 500 quid for children in need. So I was really pleased with that. So I had a match. I've had my wrong wrestling match now, mate. So I'm happy. But it's great. And, good old Norwich. We've got so much going on in our fine city. It's such a brilliant place. And, I'm proud to come from Norwich,
No, likewise, and it's always a feather in my cap when I sort of walk around here with my Norwich shirt on and stuff, and people do sort of go, and there's always nice stories that I get from people when they've visited Norwich and Canary Road. So let's just finish then. Let's have a little prediction for tomorrow then. This will go out on Monday. Obviously all being well, so
brilliant.
It'll be interesting to listen back to our predictions. So
we're predicting something that by the time people hear this will have happened. Blimey.
Yes, yeah. So let's. I'll let you go first as a professional.
Well, I've got a golden rule that I don't do predictions because it's just not my style, and I'm not going to change the rule for you, Jez. But what I am going to say is, I think we'll win. That's all I'll say.
Thank you.
I think we'll win.
I appreciate that, and I think it'll be a close one tomorrow. It'll be interesting with obviously Pelak's first game against his old club. So for me, I'm going to go 2-1, and I think Sargent will be the winner. But no,
nice one.
Rob, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure, and obviously hearing about all your experiences and the wrestling stuff as well. So yeah, thanks once again. And,
thanks for asking me, mate, and carry on the great work. You're doing a great job. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, no, thanks.
Massive thanks to Rob Butler from BBC Radio Norfolk for coming on this week's show, and thank you for your kind words at the end of the pod. It means a lot to me. Hope everyone enjoyed this week's show. If you'd like to get involved with Beyond the Barclay and come onto the show, please email beyondthebarclay@outlook.com. We are also available on all social media channels, including Facebook, X and Instagram. Thanks once again for listening, and tune in next week.